first match of the day. It's going to be Oxygen versus Parabellum. So this one's going to be interesting, right? Because we had Oxygen drop Lack saying they picked up Sweater, picked up another gunner, and again, like, I feel like that's something a ton of players are talking about right now, is that in this meta, you need gunners. And I'm not just talking about the one that used to be on Parabellum and now is on a different team. We'll get into that later. But
5 gunners would be a great team, to be fair.
I think it would be, yeah. I'd take that, yeah.
I mean, I think in this meta, you're probably going to see a lot of teams go for 4 of them. There's enough power that still remains in spite of frag grenades and some Gon 6s being removed, and the LMGs not being nearly as viable with the recoil change. We used to be in a very gunner-heavy meta. We still probably will be, but a lot of the ways that these teams have shuffled things up seems to suggest they want to prioritize aim. They want to prioritize mechanical ability over the experience that comes with having been in the league for a really long time. Sweater's already demonstrated that kind of ability. Even before he was on Beast Coast, when he played in Challenge League before he was banned, that was something that he already demonstrated. It's the same thing with these Parabellum guys that have just gotten picked up. We already know that they can gun. It's just a matter of how well they do.
Well, here's our Aimlab Pro benchmark for good old vertical. I'm looking at this because I haven't seen this before. Oh, look at 93% accuracy. That seems pretty solid, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want to see from a star player who's been in the game for so long. He has kind of filled in as that leadership role for Auction, I think, alongside of Fox, but certainly when he's out there more on the aggressive side of things, Vertical is a player that you need to be able to depend on. And although he's had his ups and downs, some people have criticized his international performances here at home. He has been that star player for Auction that they've had for so long. So it's nice to see his stats bumping up there.
I'm curious about the reaction time one. I hope that's not milliseconds, otherwise Vertical's lagging a little bit. That'd be very slow. So I've got to imagine like that's some sort of aggregate score of overall reacting to things.
A spreadsheet of overall player data would be nice to figure out, like, if some of these numbers are meant to be impressive, right?
Yeah.
I think the comparison here is that Vertical is one of the guys who probably is going to be shifting over to playing mostly Sledge now with these roster changes, and that's also something that we've known Doc to do. So this should be why we're looking at both Vertical and Doc in tandem here.
So Doc's stats a little bit lower on the Aimlab Pro benchmark, but again, we'll see if we'll see how much that matters once the game actually begins, right? Because it's an entirely different environment.
Yeah, it absolutely is when you're in the heat of the battle. I think especially being up here on the stage in NAL, right? We are on land down in Vegas, so it's going to be a little bit nerve-wracking, I think, for some of these new players who are just coming into the league. Doc and Asian here for Parabellum might have that nerves hit them a little harder than some other players.
Yep, that's right. So let's talk about Oxygen going into our first series of the day. So again, this is a team that made some of the least changes out of teams that did make changes. They let Laxing go. They brought in Sweater. So again, just kind of like trading for somebody who's a little bit more known for clicking heads, right? So the question is, how will that pan out? Now, I did have a lot of players tell me last week that if anyone was going to be exposed by the changes to LMG, they're like, Newers and Sweater, they might be the two crushing on that the most. But then again, I think a lot of players said what I kind of think too is, clicking heads is clicking heads, right?
Yeah.
If you're good at getting those shots, you're not going to need the bullets, right? The bullets are nice for the multi-kills, but in order to just remove people, you just got to be good at clicking.
Yeah, LMG or not, I don't think you get to this level without having exceptional aim, and there's no doubt that both Sweater and Newers have that incredible aim. I was able to sit down with Sweater a little bit and talk to him before the stage started, just kind of about the move, and I think that the vibe I really got from him was like he knew he wanted to get onto a new team. He didn't really like the vibes towards the end of the stage back on Beast Coast. What he told me was that it felt like if he wasn't popping off, having a good game, the team wasn't performing, and there are stats to back that up, right? Last stage, every time Sweater got less than 7 kills, Beast Coast lost 7-2 or worse, except for the one game against Mirage, but that was a 7-4 loss instead. Still not great against the bottom team last stage. So Sweater was really a player that had to show in, that had to pop off, had to have big moments. Otherwise, Beast Coast weren't performing. That shouldn't be the case here, right? Now that he's playing back on Oxygen, he can kind of work with Newers, he can work with Vertical. There are other players that will be able to step things up. And when I talked with him, he said that he is going to be pulling back his role a little bit. He's going to be more of a flex player. He's going to be playing some more of those kind of different operators. And so he will kind of leave room for both Vertical and for Newers to be those entries, to get those opening picks. I think that could be really helpful for Oxygen as a core.
Yeah, we had some questions about whether Newers and Sweater were going to be tripping over one another in terms of what their role is, because both of them were Finka players last year, or last stage when they played for OXG.
Right.
In Beast Coast case, it very much felt like they didn't really give us much else to talk about other than Sweater, especially when they were doing well. That was all we could ever speak about. But now this OXG team is not one where he necessarily needs to worry about thriving in that limelight as much. If they've already got a guy like Newers coming in over the past couple of stages, he's already demonstrated what his ability set is, where he can be utilized most effectively. Instead of Laxing, you now have Sweater, which I know a lot of people are going to have some withdrawals about why the hell like Laxing isn't on stage with the rest of these guys.
Yeah.
But I do think Sweater can slot in pretty well, provided that he and Newers don't end up trying to do the exact same thing. So if what he said ends up holding true, it's him and Fox playing flex, Dream playing support, and we'll probably end up seeing Vertical go back to more of a primary and maybe even perma-picking Sledge whenever it's not banned.
Well, when I talked to Vertical and Fox too about Laxing departing, they were like, yeah, it's tough. You know, we played with that guy for a long time. It's hard to make that change, but ultimately, you know, you got to do what you think is going to give you the best chance of victory.
And it sucks for Laxing, but he's found himself a new home, right? He's now the coach of Elevate, the best team in APAC. So he's still doing well. bit of an odd switch, but hey, I'm excited for Laxing. I hope he does well down in APAC.
It's the kind of change for OXG that also makes me think that they've been on the cusp of something for a long time. I think even before this year started, there was always the chance they can break through whatever their own proverbial glass ceiling is and raise a trophy. They're getting really, really close. But now that Sweater's come into the equation, it very much feels like the move that a team that is so close to success needs to make in order to be able to do that kind of thing. I love Laxing as much as the next guy, but this is the kind of move that they made because they know if it doesn't work, they don't really have that many options left to go up.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the search to go up, Parabellum has kind of been on that hunt all year long. This is the third stage, the third time that we've seen roster changes from this squad. You know, will the third time be the charm? They added on Doc, they added on Asian, they dropped a couple people, and the question is, you know, will the loss of Penguin and Gunner, you know, help or not? I mean, losing Gunner, I think that is a decrease. Any way you talk about objectively, that guy was really good. Penguin was your IGL, right? I mean, it's gonna, now you have to kind of reform that leadership within comms. Parabellum, you know, may have found some good players out of Challenger League, but I think it's still gonna be kind of tricky. What's your opinion on it?
I mean, I think that you look at Parabellum, right, and they're just getting younger and younger. Every single time that they make a roster move, it's these young rookies coming in. Maybe Blaz, with the exception, had some European experience, but still, it feels like they really like taking gambles on these young players coming up from CL. Even their coach, Sonar, coming in now as the other third new player or person coming into the team. You know, they picked up two 18-year-olds and a 21-year-old coach. Sonar will be the youngest person behind an NAL team this stage, and I'm sure he'll do great, but still, you've got to worry a little bit about the experience on this team. You've got to worry a little bit about the nerves, even though I think Doc and Asian are both fantastic players, and I think we've seen them have really great moments in CL. That consistency and perhaps those nerves might be the biggest thing that really affects Parabellum this stage.
Yeah.
You got to move all the way to Vegas for this.
Right?
Which I don't think any of these guys are necessarily prepared for at their core. I think you knew it was coming at some point, but for guys who are freshly 18, probably just out of high school, the problem is not going to be how well you perform in the server. It's how you adapt to everything outside of that. I think both Doc and Asian very much knew they had the skill level and the potential to make it far. Whenever their time in Challenger League was over, I don't think they knew exactly when that was going to happen. But I look at both of these guys. Asian is now the single youngest player in T2 or in T1 by far. The man just had his 18th birthday and now he's being thrust into the limelight with a team of also pretty young guys, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, you talk about Asian specifically, like, he's absolutely a mechanically talented player. He's very, very good. His gunplay is great. It's awesome. But I think there are some mixed opinions about it. When I asked Sweater about these new players, he said Doc was good, but he said, and I quote, "I've been trying to gatekeep Asian out of the NAL for my entire career. That guy's not very good."
Sounds like a Sweater quote.
Yeah, he's a little spicy there on the interview, but hey.
Asians fans would beg to differ. He's already got like a bit of a cult following in T2. Doc has also been around the block when it comes to a couple different squads in the Challenger League level. So whenever we get to see them play, I hope they can make the translation of that skill and not let the nerves get to them too much.
You know, when I was talking to Asian last week too, we were talking about the move and all that, and you know, he said I'm more homesick than I thought I would be, honestly. And I'm like, well, how are the veteran players kind of taken care of? He's like, oh, they're taking care of me really well. Like they're teaching me how to cook. They're teaching me how to function as an adult.
He's learning to cook at the Parabellum house. I don't think that's a good thing.
But he's like, you know, I miss my mom's home cooking. You know, is what he said. Which of course, you know, who wouldn't moving away from home the first time, right? So I'm like, well, you got to get those recipes now, man. Now it's on you. You got to start cooking it yourself. And he's like, yeah. So we'll see what happens. I think for him specifically, obviously the mechanical skill is there. The nerves on stage, the adaptation to living away from home. Now that's going going to be the key to success, I think, for Stage 3 for him.
And I think you can kind of look at a parallel between both Asian and Doc, and that Asian was incredibly talented. He's a very skilled player, but he was inconsistent. Even in Challenger League, you know, there were times where he was making some plays that weren't the smartest. There were times where he died in rounds that you're just like, why? You know, so I think sometimes Asian was maybe not making the best decisions. But Doc, on the other hand, I felt like was a very consistent player for his team back in Challenger League when he played on Nocturnes. They only finished 5-5, but you look through the stats, Doc had pretty much no bad games. There was one match where he didn't look amazing. He was a little shaky against Vipers. Otherwise, throughout that very long Challenger League stage, he was very good. He likes to play on that sledge. He can be that vertical player, but he's not afraid to get in, get a little aggressive, get those gunfights in either. He can play the sledge, but he can play it a little aggressively.
We'll see what they can do once the map gets started, but we're about to find out what map that's going to be. The bans are in, so let's check out where we're going for the first game of Stage 3.
Well, this is an establishing stage because we've had so many changes take place over the past little while. So regardless of what map we go to, I think it's going to be good. I fully expect us to just see both teams take their permabans off the board and stick with things that they've already demonstrated a reputation for going to this stage so far. We already know Parabellum are very, very adverse to Clubhouse, and OXG have a considerably deeper map pool simply by overall play frequency and what they've been able to do being to 2 consecutive majors. So for Parabellum, there is considerably more to prove. I feel like both the bank and the theme park bans are kind of anticipated here. So if anything, the fact that we haven't seen Chalet ban makes me wonder if Parabellum actually want to go back to it when we've only got these 3 maps left.
Villa, Chalet, and Border as our final 3 maps. You can tell these teams have both made massive changes. Only Villa of those 3 maps was played at all by these 2 teams last stage. It is going to get banned out though by Oxygen, and we're going to go to Border instead. A map that both teams have played only once. For Oxygen, their first ever play was against the Sonics. It was close, but they won it out 7-5. For Parabellum, the first ever NAL match that this organization played was on Border. Started off strong, but they lost 7-5 to Beast Coast. So two games, both kind of far in the past. Both have made roster changes. I don't think you can read into it too much.
Not really a super high ban rate either. It very much kind of feels as though Parabellum are like, maybe we'll play it, maybe we won't. Same thing with OXG, but OXG's focus was very much on like a big 4 of maps that they could then go into international events with and try there. So it was a lot of border play, or sorry, a lot of Villa play when we saw, especially against like Gaming Gladiators and Wolves and W7M back at the Berlin Major. Didn't quite work out. So I do think it's good for OXG to test their mettle on a couple of other maps here. And when they start making the rest of this run in this stage toward the Major, we could see a map like Border come in because again, they seem like they'll ban it every once in a while, but they also kind of don't care. So if they master it, good thing for upcoming international competition.
Yeah, tons of unknowns coming into day 1 in this stage, like so many new players, so many changes to the game. Like I think anything you learned in stage 1 and 2, I feel like that's just out the window, which is important when you consider predictions because, oh yes, we're not giving that up for stage 3. No changes there. We're still going to measure the ability of the casters, the analysts, and the force of random chance to predict it. First, we're going to talk to our casters. Blue and Stokes, how you doing? You've been behind that desk since stage 2, right? There, sleeping bags and underneath and
Just
everything.
been parked here, yeah.
Got a couple of tickets now. It's not working out too well. I'll have to try and figure out a way to pay those off.
Wow.
Face it does not mess around.
That is harsh. All right, well, who do you got winning this one?
I think the changes from Parabellum personally are going to take a little bit longer to develop compared to the shifts we've seen from Oxygen. Wow, with that said, it does seem like the things are shifting a bit more than would first appear with just a single roster change for Oxygen. Given that, though, I still feel like Oxygen is still going to be a really strong contender here with the roster they have, so I think they'll be taking it today.
All right, Oxygen for Blue. Stokes, agree, disagree?
He's always so reasonable, and it just makes it makes my job so hard, Noah. I don't know why I ever let him go first. I should try and be the reasonable one more
I'll let you go
often,
first
but,
next time. I'll make it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm going to have to go with Oxygen as well. I think that Parabellum have a lot of potential, but there's got to be someone there to harness it, and I don't think there's anybody really standing out right now. So we'll have to see how it goes for the remainder of the stage, but Oxygen for right now, they got Foxay, Sweater slotting in. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem for them.
I think that is a very fair and balanced assessment from both of you. It seems to be that way.
Come on, Doa. Throw a grenade in there. Pick a side.
I don't pick a side. I let the coin do that for me. We'll get to that in a moment. We'll also get back to our casters in a moment. Blue and Stokes will return in just a second to cast that match for us. But now we got to find out what our analysts think. I would imagine you're both picking Oxygen unless you want to make it spicy. What do you think?
Well, though, as the North American League talent prediction champion from last stage, I do feel a lot of weight on my shoulders, a lot of responsibility to pick wisely for this game, and that's why I'm also going Auction Esports. They're the more established team. They've got, historically better players. They've got more talent on that roster. I think it's pretty safe to pick them over PB here, but it's first day. Anything could happen.
I don't know. There's not really all that much that needs to be said about a situation like this, so I'm not going to overcomplicate it. Yeah, we'll see OXG take this bad boy.
Okay, so everybody picking Oxygen. That means it's time to find out what the coin has to say. Oh, yes, it's back. If you're unfamiliar, we have an 1884 silver dollar from the United States of America here that I will flip, and we'll find out what it predicts. It did very well stage 1, not so much stage 2. We'll see which stage 3 has to offer. It's going to be heads Oxygen, tails Parabellum. We always go by the graphic. Left is heads, right is tails. Time to flip it.
I thought I threw that in the pool in Berlin.
No, you didn't. I kept it. I jumped in and got it. It's tails. The coin says Parabellum. The coin likes to pick Parabellum. I've noticed that.
We're starting this already?
Yep, that's right. There.
It's the first day and we already have
this.
All right.
I mean, I think this means we've also saved OXG by the metric, right?
Maybe, yeah. Usually that's true. But is it even an upset? Everything's so crazy. We'll have to find out. What do the fans say? What do the fans predict? It's going to be Oxygen. All right.
The power of
Everybody
Fox.
put the coin. That's how it's starting off. And it was an 80% in favor of Oxygen for the fan vote, too, according to our producers. So, yeah, we'll see if Parabellum can exceed expectations. We've also got a community poll for you to take a look at. What is it going to be? The question is, who is missing Finca more, Sweater or Blaz? That's a good question.
Blaz wasn't really playing that much Finca, now that I think about it.
Sweater,
I think if anyone was playing it, it was Gunner. I'm checking this, actually.
I think Gunner was, but the thing is
you could argue it.
Finca?
You could argue it.
I think a lot of players are pretty happy they get to be a little bit more flexible in terms of auto play.
What I've
if they were on that
because
Finca,
of this patch, most people have been like, "Hey, I love that I haven't seen a single Finca in ranks."
Yeah,
so yeah,
that's what
I
I've been
think
hearing,
like you may be right. Ash might be on the comeback.
Maybe. Well, we'll find out. Quick break, and then we get into the first map of the day. Parabellum taking on Oxygen. Whose roster swap will reign supreme? We'll find out when we come back on NAL.
Don't give up on me, yeah. Don't give up on me, yeah.
Going into stage 2, we all knew we wanted to make that major again. We wanted to be in front of a crowd. And yeah, we just worked our butts off, made it again, and sadly didn't have a good enough performance.
I'm pretty sure, are the only team in history that decided to tell our player, which is Lax, that he was going to be getting replaced before the event. We told him a month ahead of time so that he wouldn't feel like he was getting shafted from other team opportunities. Leading up to that event, we were playing great throughout the stage, and then obviously everything transpired, and we knew that we kind of shot ourselves in the foot for the major.
And since we told him, practice was wasted that entire month. We played unrealistic rounds. Just ran at the other team. We thought that would just like transfer over, and then we got steamrolled 7-1, and we're like, what's going on? We don't know what we're doing. Like, we actually don't know what's going on. Strats don't work. We don't know how to adapt to this. They're just jumping out windows, killing all of us.
W7M, a dominant victory over OXG.
We lost to Gaming Gladiators.
And Gaming Gladiators will go away with a win to their name.
Truthfully, going to the event, it didn't seem like many of us wanted to be there, and it just seemed that everyone was looking on to the next thing that we're going to be able to do.
It wasn't even just him that didn't care, it was like all of us. Like, we knew he'd be gone, so it's like, why do we gotta try?
After the major, we're just thinking of the relief that we're able to get, I guess, with this new roster in the areas that we thought we were lacking. So now we're just excited for all the possibilities of things that we can do and how far we can go moving forward.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the NAL. It is just about time for us to hop into the first matchup of the stage here. Bound to be an interesting one. Obviously, you guys have probably seen it at home, but for those who haven't, almost every single team in the NAL has made at least one roster change heading into this season, and these two teams here are going to be no exception. Two new additions have been swapped out on Parabellum, and we've seen one very big change that you guys probably heard in that last video there talked about for Oxygen, and that's, of course, going to be the removal of longtime standing member of the team. Laxing is out, and now Sweater, coming in from Beast Coast, is in, but not playing in that aggressive entry-styled role you may have expected. At least that's not what we're expecting here, based on how we spoke to the players a few days ago. We expect him to kind of take a step back and put himself into more of a flex position. So this will be kind of interesting for me to see how this works out.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that's the big thing that you can talk about with Oxygen. How do they try and bounce back from not having Laxing? I mean, they probably feel a lot better about the situation now, especially, you know, after seeing that video and seeing how they felt the month prior to the major. You know, there's still a couple reasons to try at the major, like winning the thing, I'd say that, but I mean, past that, I totally understand where they're coming from. You know, you try and give Laxing the benefit of the doubt, but for everybody subconsciously, that kind of messes with you, right? You're looking for that next step, and this really is that. So I'm assuming that a lot of things have been in pretty good graces, especially with Sweater coming into a role that he feels comfortable with. This is something that he wanted to do on Beast Coast, but they wouldn't allow it. He was just too strong in that front forward position. So now he gets to, you know, try and gnash his teeth on this and see what he can potentially produce with Oxygen, one of the teams who's been to the majors most in the last couple of years in North America.
Meanwhile, we've got two new additions over on the side of Parabellum as well. Doc as well as Asian coming into the fold. Both these players are coming up from CL for the first time. Asian, of course, coming in from the Luminosity roster, and then Doc as well with a career going all the way back to 2020, at least as far as Liquipedia is concerned as well. So a good amount of experience, I think, for both of these players. Asian as well has results going all the way back to 2021, so these guys will be no slouches in that regard. The bigger issue for Parabellum is going to be who is taking up the leadership mantle, obviously, as Penguin, the longtime leader of Parabellum, has now departed.
Somebody has to have the reins, and you know, you have to be on the same page, and you need a grounding rod in order to do that in a game like Rainbow Six Siege. It's very fast-paced when those executions start to go off, and you need things to be like a trigger pull. It needs to be very fast, very calculated. So without them having that, you know, shining beacon, we're like, oh, this is obviously the person that's going to step up and do this. I think it's going to be some growing pains for the first couple of games while they feel things out. Comms aren't going to be as clean as they usually are because there might not be anyone commanding where the team is exactly going. It might just, you know, kind of flow like water for the first couple of days. We're just kind of going everywhere, and we'll have to see if they can potentially get something out of that. I mean, they have a lot of frag power on this squad now, and with a map like Border, that's going to be something that they can abuse quite handedly.
Yeah, I think the map plays into both of these teams' new changes as well, giving their new members a little bit more freedom to play around with the opening strategies here as we get ourselves into the map and get ourselves into the bans. We didn't even get to talk about, of course, the most recent patch and how that's almost certainly going to shake up the meta, so we can start talking about it now as we get a knock ban right off the rip.
All right, so this is going to take a minute. Sorry about that, but it's going to take a little while, mainly because we got secondary EMPs in now, folks. Impact EMPs have been implemented inside of Rainbow Six Siege, and what they do is exactly what Thatcher does. They allow you to throw them at anything, battery-powered, electrical powered, whatever you want, and you turn it off, and it's gets used as a secondary utility now on people like Nook, who also actually happens to have secondary frag grenades and secondary hard breach, all while being able to sneak around the map, and that's why you're seeing her banned, because she's potentially the best flanking operator we've ever seen in Rainbow Six Siege ever. She just has everything you could potentially want. Past that, there's a lot of other options on the board that are kind of in that same line. Speaking of lines, Lion is one of them. He's got so many things on his secondary utility now, and we know how annoying that primary utility is, so be on the watch for him, as well as Dokkaebi. She is amazing at the current moment. Same thing with the secondary utilities and the Gone 6 secondary, same as Lion. But she has the Logic Bomb, and it got buffed, John. They made it to where when you call, the people that are dead, they don't get to see cameras anymore. So all of a sudden you're dead in the water on info, and you have a bunch of people running at you with rifles that you just have to try and take a heads-up gunfight with.
A lot of other changes that came in as well. For instance, attachments, you might see things you might not normally expect to see, such as a lot of potential suppressors, more than likely going to be coming into the fold for our players now that it is no longer going to have that damage penalty attached to it. But either way, we are live with the first round, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get into it here. Parabellum versus Oxygen. PB has the defensive start here that could potentially give them an edge. We generally in the past have seen this map play out somewhat heftily towards the defender's side, but oftentimes in these matchups, especially with new roster changes coming into the fold, we could very easily see that get turned on its head. As things get started out, though, we are going to go to the expected initial site for Parabellum upstairs in the lockers.
Yes, indeed, and we can already see the defensive changes rearing their head as well, as Doc is on Alibi, a choice that's coming back into the mix quite often here, at least inside of the opener of Stage 3 thus far. Alibi still has that 1.5, and with the recent recoil changes to every gun in the game, for PC at least, it's made it to where Alibi is a fantastic option with that MX4 Storm. One of the best longer distance SMGs you could really use right now because of that magnified scope. They removed the 1.5 from Momai, so he's a little bit more difficult to try and take some of those longer engagements with. Somebody else you can actually look to for that is actually what Esk is playing right now as well, Goyo, as he gets the 1.5 on the Vector this patch. So it's shifted things around a little bit, but I'd say on both sides of the coin, it's opened up a lot of different opportunities for, you know, both offense and defense to try and abuse the map just a little bit more, but in different ways than what we were, you know, seeing prior. Looks like we're gonna have some frag grenades out here for Newers. He's gonna have the G36C on today. They did a little bit of a touch-up job onto the, oh my goodness gracious, I'm not remembering the other rifle right now at the current moment, but either way, they ended up touching up that other rifle and making it a little bit more difficult for her, no longer having those magnified sights. So we're gonna have Asian locked up in behind Horseshoe. This has been a good delay so far from PB, as Oxygen is just looking to get a foot in the door.
Specifically a good delay from Asian here too. Obviously, the prevalence of a zombie is not going to change too much with this patch, and he's ultimately able to go 1 for 1 as the entry finally comes in. Good timing on it from Oxygen just to lock in a simple trade right there. Probably a little bit upset that they ended up losing vertical in the process, but it's only the Zof going down. It's not the end of the world here. Should still have plenty of utility to make up for it. If they really needed the stuns, there might be something to talk about there, but we'll bring that up again when we get to the end of the round. Aside from that, it's still an even battle down to a 4v4, but we are starting to see OXG, of course, with time getting a bit lower, starting to get more adventurous. It'll work out to bait an aggressive play from Kool-Aid. Sweater will be able to take down Kool-Aid, of course, and we'll see a little bit of damage going out onto one of the players from Oxygen, as they were the original target from Kool-Aid, but won't be able to take him down. Dream still survives with half of his HP, and more importantly, both of those exos, so we can take out the main wall here and hopefully give Oxygen access to the site.
Oh, Blaz with a chance, working his way in from east. Don't believe there's anyone actually inside the area for security at the current moment. I believe they're all out on the balcony, and Blaz, what a move. No drones here from Oxygen. I think they've misread this situation. The Lion's down, one's still outside. Blaz is gonna play his time. Hits the prone, Eska gets one. PB, they're getting away with it. Getting away with the bag early here in round 1. Blaz will take down Dream. It's up to Fox to try and clutch. He almost gets the flick through the wall, but Doc will shut him down to clutch out the first round for Parabellum of the season, or rather, the stage.
Yep, Fox is actually able to pick up that last kill there, but ultimately does not matter as he's still outmatched inside of the 1v3 sat before him. Valiant attempt from the Oxygen roster, but unfortunately not enough control inside of the early and mid round. As you can see here, the trade going out on the inside of security, on top of a lack of any successful push anywhere else on the map, left them really without a whole lot of options. And because as well, they didn't really have great control over security, just that 1-for-1 exchange, Blaz was allowed to make the play he made, which crunched out most of the hopes for Oxygen to successfully get themselves into that site.
Yeah, the big thing right now for OXG is that if they mismanage their info, like that drone not being inside of customs, or rather security, then you're going to run into a lot of problems with a team like PB, right? Just because they don't have somebody at the range doesn't mean that they can't frag, and that's been the thing we've been trying to drive home this entire broadcast thus far. You're dealing with a Viper, basically. Like, you really need to pay attention to what your enemy is going to do, because if you're going to allow them to swing, they're more than likely going to take 2 bodies with each person, and that's exactly what we saw inside of that trade game there at the tail end of round 1. So, I mean, good on Parabellum for playing off of each other quite early on in this one, especially with a very close quarters map like Border. You know, things get very congested, and it's very easy to get in the way of your teammates. So they're all giving each other that proper amount of space, but able to play off of each other all in the same breath and make it look quite easy up against OXG, at least for the first round.
Away from all that, we are live with the second round here, so let's get ourselves into it, see how Parabellum looks to themselves up for another successful defense. Going to start out with a little bit of damage coming out against them. Doc trying to actively contest against the jail breach that had already been made by Newers and a few of the other members of Oxygen here. Is going to be sticking around, and of course you guys probably noticed the Toxic Bay blocking the way. He can kind of throw out his other 2 here and extend the timer a bit further if he wants to, but obviously would like to save that utility more than likely for a later portion of this round. The drone helping out with the advances from the Yana here is going to spot him, so can't really get too aggressive. Otherwise it would be quite obvious to the attackers here, but still, Newers has his own ways of dealing with things, even if he won't jump back out. The nade comes in, doesn't take him down outright though, still leaves him with about 40 HP when everything's said and done. The drone will jump right into his face, finally giving him an opportunity to get rid of that. But it'll end up being Asian that comes in to assist him here, taking down Sweater outright, only allowing Newers to trade that kill finally against Doc a few seconds later though with another well-placed nade.
A very solid delay from Doc though, kept the at least aggression towards his part of the map, initially allowing PB some open air to get Sweater, but they're going to refrag towards the top of Metal. Asian now down, and Oxygen with the lead off yet again here, but we saw how that last round went. They need to right their wrongs, and it starts now with Dream in this plant.
The push coming in to try and interrupt it now from the top side on Kool-Aid, but he's not going to be able to locate it in time. Goes down. You see Dream actually picking up another kill against Eska. It's a little attempt to plant one more time here now. Kool-Aid going to try to drop back in. That'll interrupt the plant a second time. He still thinks there's pressure coming from the custom side, though, and to some extent he's correct, just not where exactly it is. Quickly corrects, though, to read back into it, executing yours with a beautiful headshot there, but still 3 players sit before him from Oxygen. 2 of them are quite low, but not low enough in Foxay's case. He'll shut it down this time and lock in a traded round for OXG.
Nicely done. Much more control over the situation for Oxygen, knowing the exact location of where Parabellum was in a lot of different instances there and able to capitalize upon that. Parabellum was some pretty solid delay over in Customs, I'd say. I really like the smoke play there from Doc. You know, check out all your smokes, trying to lay them over there near detention. That part of the map is really annoying to deal with, you know, especially when you have players patrolling upstairs like PB did. You know, playing around inside of that area and trying to manage Customs through the floor while also managing 2, now technically 3 areas that you can work your way in if you really want to go for that sprint across where you're going to get marked, right? But 2 serious ways into that room. It's just a lot to try and manage as one person up there. So very solid positioning from PB, but it just doesn't pay off. Oxygen's able to get it back in blood, and they're going to be able to find the second round.
Let's see if second round can be claimed by Oxygen yet again on the assault, or if PB is going to be able to bounce back strong. So they need to wait another round, of course, before they can play into the upstairs hold again. Of course, it's going to be locked in since round number 1. Away from that, I see still a successful hold from Parabellum coming in, or at least a potential successful hold coming in downstairs. They'll extend themselves into it.
You can just call this setup overall for PB annoying, especially with the mute jammers that Blaz has and the rotations that Eska is going to be able to make. There's a lot going on inside of the building right now for Oxygen, and this could lead to a lot of problems, especially with this top floor hold that they got going on. This has created a lot of angles that Oxygen are going to need to know about. It's not something that would be potentially default, right? I mean, obviously, as an entry or anything, you're going to be, you know, as high on your senses as you possibly can, just trying to see anything that you could potentially, you know, view on your peeking angle. But that could still catch you off guard, and that's what Parabellum's attempting to do. They're making this building a labyrinth. Now Oxygen has to try and work their way through without a map.
Eska's still going to be patiently waiting here. Get some intel thrown out against him, so it will be revealed, but quickly knocks out said drone, so he'll be able to easily move around this room and maintain another position. Still sitting in relatively the same spot he was playing until a few seconds ago, where we finally see him relocate, only for another drone to scout him out again. Seems like Oxygen is very much prioritizing the elimination of Eska here. Sweater, in the meanwhile, though, is going to be able to take out Asian as he attempts to move in, I believe, to support the position of his teammate deeper into the bathrooms there. Obviously, a lot of crunch coming in from Oxygen here inside of the square lobby room right now. out. So they try to counter it back out with some of their own presence. Doc now ready for the challenge as he still sits inside of Customs. Will catch Vertical, trying to swing out from the inside of one of the closets and equalizes yet again in a 4v4.
Kind of an issue there for Oxygen. Vertical goes for the coin flip and ends up on tails, not able to get the head. And now it's a 4 versus 4, as John was saying. Nice peek here from Blaz, but it'll get taken down by Sweater, who's holding things down at the top of Ace. He's been here for a while. This was the starting ground for Oxygen, the square area, as they try to rotate themselves around the building and deal with people like Doc once again inside of Customs. Again, you can see how strong this positioning is, especially with how Parabellum set up the top floor with all those angles around break and around security. It makes it so problematic to try and deal with this positioning. And Doc can just continue to assist them. What a shot from Foxday, though. Has a little bit of a pre-fire. Might have had a punch hole there just to assist a little bit, but either way, what a kill for him. He's opened up the gates and now allows Oxygen a chance to take round 3.
4v2, so OXG certainly in pole position to try and shut down this round now, but they still need to get themselves into the site. Thankfully, with 40 seconds remaining and the overall kill advantage, they've got a good amount of excess time to be able to follow through and shut down the remaining 2 players from Parabellum. The longer they wait, though, the more suspicious it becomes, and the more these Parabellum players will have that clutch potential being activated. For Reska, things are going to get rough pretty much immediately. He's been able to survive, and now he's going to thrive as he shuts down Newer's. Dream, though, will be able to exchange him on the secondary frag, and Foxay once again closes out with the final kill to give Oxygen a second overall round.
Parabellum has to try and fight back against Oxygen's map control early there with that setup. All of the reinforcements are pushed towards the outside of the building. You have reinforcements upstairs, you have reinforcements all around detention and all of these other areas to cut off these lines of sight and make the rest of the map easier to play. But what does that do? It makes it to where the site setup isn't as strong. And it makes it to where a lot of those walls are going to be soft, right? So it makes it to where a lot of the gunfights that go off of site quite difficult. And that's what we saw inside of those dying moments. It's difficult to try and get a situation where you can get multiple bodies when you have no cover to play off of. I kill the first person, I immediately get sprayed down through a soft wall. There's nothing you can really do about that. So PB has to answer that call early if they want to go for a strategy like that. They have so much utility off of the site that once everyone gets crunched on and, you know, they potentially die, it makes it to where that setup is problematic for the tail end of the round. So, you know, not exactly working out for them in the best of graces, but PB at least off, I would say, to a solid start inside of these first 3 rounds. They've gotten 1. Oxygen's looking decent, I would say. I don't think they're astounding at the current moment, but as we were talking about at the very beginning, you know, this is going to be quite the growing pain section of the stage.
In-game leadership for Parabellum. Apparently thinks they needed to take a time out this early, so going to jump out of it here to try and recenter themselves after 2 rounds back-to-back now have fallen, mainly off of the prowess, the late round play too, into the hands of Oxygen. So time to see now if PB can change things up. They will have that return up to the second floor hold that they used in the first round to pick up their 1 and only round so far. Let's see if that is going to allow for Lightning to strike twice here and give them the chance to tie things up at a 2-2 scoreline. Not going to see much change up for Oxygen. At least they are going to be sticking with the same lineup to attack this site as used previously.
Parabellum going to be sticking things towards the outside of the building yet again. So see if this will make things a little bit harder. But just to remind you, they are going to be switching up sites. So this is going to be the top floor. We'll probably see a lot more dedication of players around this area. Obviously, we still have that chance to have a few people down low with Nitro Cells or something like that. Probably be a big player like Eska down there trying to hold things down. But we'll just have to see. There's so much info game when it comes to Oxygen at the current moment with the Lion and Yana both working their way in. So if you do try and go off on your own, you might be caught out as a straggler, not really have anywhere to try and play off of some defensive utility. Could get you punished. So Parabellum more than likely going to try and stick to their guns, play some crosses upstairs, and see if they can slow down the Oxygen offensive.
Things are going to be very slow overall inside of this round. Oxygen obviously having to think about their first moves a little bit more this time, as they won't have the direct access to areas like jail where they can get an immediate contestation against some of the defensive setups from Parabellum here. Need to work a bit harder to clear out positions like this one from Asian that really struggled. The Oxygen clear on the last round was played for this site. He's going to continue to deploy out his delay tactics here, whether that's going to come from the Kiva barricades or just his overall positioning on the inside of this room. He is ready for the fight, but is finally thrust on him and Newers. Still even hard committing to that nade as well after the peek came in from Blaz. Gets the objective done at least, but still, Blaz is going to be able to Pokeball him after getting the down off that initial peek. The trade will need to come in from the sledge, but does the sledge realize? No, Foxay doesn't doesn't catch it, and Blaz claims a second. Beautifully done by the roam game on Parabellum.
It's like I said, man. Well, just like water. Keep it flowing, and that's what Parabellum's doing right now. They're making the plays in the moment, and they are taking it to Oxygen on defense. I think things got a little antsy. I think this timeout was good. I think, you know, anxiety was getting to them, and now they're back in the good graces of frag potential, because, oh my, Dream. Dream. It's a double swing from PB and a flawless round after the tack timeout. They're feeling themselves as they'll tie it up 2-2.
Nicely done from Parabellum. You can see it there. The coach very happy about the way that round played out, and why wouldn't you be? Almost flawless there from PB. In fact, it was flawless, as they indeed shut down every single aggressive opportunity that Oxygen tried to take a hold of, and even past that point, let's be real, Oxygen never really got themselves into the building. They got themselves to the outside of CCTV and jail, and that's it. That's as far as they got in terms of map control.
That's the only way those setups kind of work. You have to be able to try and get aggressive with those early points around the map, especially in a map like Border. If you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile. They are. The map's way too small. You know, perfect example, Fox A. If you give him detention, what's he immediately gonna do? He's gonna get inside a stock, and he's gonna open up that entire wall, and now you can't really play customs. You can't really try and cross over to server. There's a bunch of different areas that he can just abuse because he's simply there. And Parabellum, obviously in that timeout, recognized that the early aggression is where they needed to be at, and they played it so very well. Fantastic round from them, but now this is what we need to see Fox A step up. Yeah, we've gotten rid of Lax, and we've gotten rid of some of the veteran talent on this team. We need to see him in Vertical make some decisions here and get this team back onto the winning track. Can they bounce back after having a round swept away from them in a flawless fashion?
Says they will be able to return to a downstairs take where things, at least as far as an early to mid-round perspective, have been looking much more promising for Oxygen on a round-to-round basis here. With that said, though, it's not going to be the same site they've attempted 2 times previously. It looks like it's going to be over inside of Tellers this time for PB. Things will have actually an interesting extension coming in here, as the Azami will still be holding onto CCTV upstairs to maintain that extra pressure that Oxygen will have to eventually clear out.
Yeah, Asian is a constant inside of security. He is always playing there, always watching, and why not? Especially, you know, with the Azami. She's fantastic for a position like this where there's not very much cover to play around because she gets to make her own. She's the best architect type operator that we have in the game by far. So more than likely see her continue to get played throughout the stage more and more, and we'll have to see if her ban becomes prevalent yet again, because definitely during stage 2 that was a big thing that was happening. Doc looking for somewhat of an aggressive peak, but he knows to play out this time. The most impactful player for Nocturnes during the last stages of CL, now on PB and making his presence known. But you can see that for the entirety of the squad, they're just playing well across the board, all practically having the same KD spread. Asian's gonna have a lot of pressure upstairs, and it's the double swing from Oxygen to take him down behind Horseshoe.
Nice coordination coming in from OXG. Things again working out much better now. They don't have the immediate pressure being thrusted against them here for the upstairs clear. Say that, but we do have at least a little bit of that coming in against them as they try to take control, but thankfully they know the support isn't going to be nearly as strong as we've been seeing on some of these other pushes into the second floor holds. Parabellum starting to look weaker and weaker. Kool-Aid brought down incredibly low from his most recent swing. He had to back away. Doc may very well have to do the same thing. There is some damage being traded onto the Oxygen roster, but it's hitting the PB guys much more heavily at this point here. There's another successful hit coming in from Dream that will take out the position from Doc. Kool-Aid, I believe, still in the area, but Vertical indeed now spotting him out for the inside. Nicely done from Kool-Aid to sneak that kill off onto Vertical, but he still goes down at the end of the day, and the team is still down into a 4-2, but Eska will get a nice spot through the window upstairs, takes down one, almost baits in a second one here as well, as we see more presence coming through from Oxygen to try to revive their teammate. May just abandon ship on that though, as even without him, it's still going to fall down to a 3v2. There we go, a smart play from OXG as they open up more of the floorboards to scare away that defender. Finally allow this res to come through, hopefully.
Yeah, Dream says, Vertical? I've got that, don't worry. Skeleton Key rips open the top floor. I think I can, and not able to get too much past that as Parabellum will fall back. On Newers, believe that he knows one's inside of Passport, gets the initial shot, knows where the last one is, but Blaz with 2! Knocks it down to a 1 versus 2, completely clutchable. Only 10 seconds left. Sweater has the case. The drop right into his face. Blaz takes it, and he'll take the last kill in the round 2. My God, Parabellum, slow it down a bit. My heart can't take this at 10 a.m.
absolutely crazy round coming in from Blaz there, and it's so unfortunate for Oxygen. Had built up such a careful execute, trying to bait the members of PB out so they could double swing them, so they could get them in the open for just an outright execute, only to have the massive fumble at the end with two players jumping in front of each other, trying to clear out the lobby, causing hesitation. I believe it was on Newers' part, for good reason, obviously. Doesn't want to take his teammate's head off, but that just lines up a double kill for Blaz, and it all falls down from that point onward.
Parabellum and their willingness to continue to play the round. They're gritty, John. This team is fresh. You got to remember, they just had 2 brand new players come into this team, and they are playing down to the wire on every single play. We see them in a 2 versus 4. They're still making rotations. They're still falling back off of things, you know, giving that ghost pressure, trying to take the fights to the floor upstairs, making Oxygen have to make adjustments, and that is what is problematic for OXG. Offense is not easy to coordinate in Rainbow Six Siege, and when you lose one of your key components that you've had for years, this is exactly what it's going to look like.
Definitely fun to watch here for Parabellum. For Oxygen now has to be getting very, very frustrating to have these strategies be deployed so often, and at least as of the most recent pause from PB, just none of it's working out due to just raw aggression from PB, outwitting the members of OXG time and time again. Parabellum on fire right now and looking to really take the lead here with a 4-2 lead if they can negotiate another win for themselves on the final round. Lion is out and about again for Oxygen. Sweater's immediately going to pop off one of the EE1D charges to try and get some intel. Most of OXG still outside of the building, so unfortunately not going to get a whole lot of use, at least in this point in the round, out of that charge.
I'm going to see Vertical lock up the sandwich window as well as the vents window, making sure no hop-outs can happen on this side of the map. For Foxay, who's going to be managing AC, he has Blaz actually inside here, inside of Archives. Go for kind of an aggressive peek, a frag grenade out. Asian will go down, but Newers won't know that. He's going to go for another frag grenade. So 2 frags for the price of a life. You know, I obviously would give that over to OXG. The big thing is that there's not nearly as many nades available any longer. Including Newers. He's not available any longer either. Please leave a message after the beep. Well, we're going to be back into the 4 versus 4. As I was going to say, Sledge happens to be one of the other ops that has frag grenades on him. And then past that, it's Blaz, and then there's one more. There's only 4. Oh, it's Nook. There's only 4 people that have frag grenades now. So we've completely moved away from a lot of frag operators. Dream, what a catch, especially after that drone. You thought he was going to lose it out just due to the animation, but able to get back to cover very quickly.
Great correction there, and not letting the unfortunate events, at least as far as OXG is concerned, from the previous round unfold a second time here. Blaz will be stopped in his tracks. And overall, this round is looking much more promising for the Oxygen attack as they've already brought things down into a 4 versus 2. But a nice sneak from Kool-Aid has that cheeky little angle down below through the floorboards to take out Vertical. Brings it into a palatable 3v2. Doc's going to need the support of his other teammate, though, so Kool-Aid will have to try and route back over as he's quickly running out of time. But Doc's aggression once again catches OXG with their pants down. Dream is going to get caught out, trying to entry into the site. I believe that's the case going down as well. So Sweater and Foxay now need to reposition to try and win out this even 2v2.
I'm scared for Oxygen because, I mean, Doc looks built for this. I'll be honest with you. This is the first game that I've really got to sit down and be intimate with his play style and his management of the potential areas that we could see the offense try and come from. It's just too strong, John. He's like a one-man army, really. And then Kool-Aid is just there to really strike home. He's the jab to Kool-Aid's blow, and now it's down to Sweater with no EE1Ds. Yes, Lion might still be a kind of busted operator, but with 2 impact EMPs and a V308, what can you accomplish, Sweater? The new pickup for Oxygen. We're going to try and put the case down. That's our play as of right now, but he's getting his location bared down upon. He's going to pre-fire Doc. He should have been aware of that. He's going to swing in. He's got a hard ping. Sweater! Oh no! Parabellum's going to get it on the timer instead. It's a 4-2 split in favor of the Canadians.
It is smart play across the board, no matter which way we look at it, in almost every single round from Parabellum. That tactical pause reinvigorated them as well after they dropped the only 2 rounds in that half and allowed them to bring, I believe it was 3 in a row, into their favor here. Absolutely wonderful stuff we see over the course of this half from PB, and excellently played. Moments like that where we see there from Kool-Aid is what had been the bane of Oxygen throughout that entire half.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
He saved his own life by proning right there at the very tail end. Sweater would have decapitated him. Like, oh my. That's what I'm telling you. It is down to the wire with Parabellum. They do not care about the man count. They will figure out a way to take that round from you. I love Rainbow Six Siege, John. I'm so awake right now, and I did not get that good of sleep last night. I got like 3 hours, but we're only like halfway through this game, and the adrenaline's pumping. I'm ready for stage 3, man. I miss casting. I miss this whole shindig. It's great.
All right, well, let's see if Parabellum can complete the initial upset. Of course, we had the fully loaded prediction bracket as well for this one. Everybody picking OXG, including the two of us. The coin.
Had to bring that up, man.
The coin is the only one that picked Parabellum, I believe. I don't even think the fan vote went to PB.
Oh gosh, you're right. It's Doa's fault. Yes, it is Doa's fault. Awesome. We'll make sure to like at least put that in like his recommendations for his future endeavors and stuff. You know, it's like hey, he might mess up some of his predictions with a coin. But either way, so back into this and back into the second half. Auction now on defense, and they're choosing a pretty interesting side-off rep.
It's important to note, of course, we got the side switch coming into play now, so Auction probably going to have a little bit more confidence to play into this defensive end of things. PB as well, the coordination needs to be doubly so of what we saw in the previous half, as we saw in the first half, things can fall apart quite quickly. They try to play a detached sort of push together, but apparently that's not an issue for Parabellum. Doc catching a wide swing and vertical right at the beginning of the round, opens up access here to the inside of the building. And more importantly, quite a bit of the second floor as well going to be taken because there's not a huge amount of defense on this one. We are going to be in a teller's hold, so this isn't obviously do or die positioning for Oxygen to maintain, but still, going to give up quite a bit of it early on here.
I'm scared for Dream right now. I know I said that earlier on, but what a situation to be in, especially with Sweater downstairs feeding you all of this info. Dream, you got 3 people here on the west balcony. You might want to be worried about that. And it doesn't really seem like Sweater's going to have a nitro opportunity just yet as no one's snuck in. Asian's going to take down Dream as well upstairs. That was a player over near Radio. Sweater going to at least take down Was, but Blaz ready for the gunfight again, and Sweater on very low HP. He has to tap the head, and Doc already on top of him. It's done. It's dusted. It's down to the IGL of Oxygen, Foxay, to try and pick this up. Parabellum, they're just too much for OXG.
Fox even tried to make a bit of a play to get some revenge for the death of Sweater from a few moments ago as well. Wanted to try to jump out jail, but the jail breach was actually imperfect. There was a little bit left, so it didn't let him out. Meaning that he's locked in the corner here. That would explain why he was over in that part of the map at least, but still he's got no power to stop this defuse from going onto the floor. He's got to just try and bait out a fight or two to make this a little bit more palatable for himself, but even that's going to be hard to achieve. PB, like you said, has been playing lights out here inside of these rounds, especially when they know they have the control. They've been very rare to kind of throw away a player or two for the sake of KD. So once again, they'll keep it safe, they'll keep it secure, and they'll keep the lead locked in as they get their 5th round to start at the second half.
Cool, calm, collected, and vibes. That's what you need for a team, and that's what Parabellum has. They're playing off of each other extremely well. Even the situation that we saw upstairs with the sledge that I believe was Doc, we saw him start pushing over towards Archives, but he immediately backs off because, yes, their pacing's still fast. They want it to be quick, but they want to be coordinated. They don't want to try and go off on their own and lose these silly gunfights that they shouldn't be taking. If we're going to deal with Dream over inside of Office, John, we're going to do it with 3 people. We're not doing it with 1. And that's what Parabellum's mentality has been. Every single time that somebody on Oxygen gets a kill, what happens? Parabellum shows up and they kill them immediately. It's like an assassination. They're like, oh, hey, yeah, in 5 seconds, somebody's going to barge in that door and they're going to shoot you in the head. And that's what continues to happen to OXG. They are constantly 2 steps behind PB, and they are not ready for the onslaught that they're bringing. And I feel for them because not only is this pressure on Sweater for filling the shoes of Laxing, but this is to show that you didn't make the wrong decision in what you did for the start of the stage. And you're up against Parabellum, who I believe finished 6th last stage, and they just made 2 changes. They made more changes than you did.
And a leadership change at that.
Yes, they technically don't have one right now, at least to our knowledge. They more than likely have figured this out, and they'll tell us later on.
It looked like, if I saw the cams correctly when they were paused, it looked like Kool-Aid was doing most of the talking, if I saw it correctly.
Yeah, he's doing quite a bit of the fragging, too.
Yeah. Like I said, definitely something where we got to get them on interview and talk a little bit more about it. But just off of the, obviously, like the camera perception, it looked like Kool-Aid was kind of, driving the cart from the pause. But we'll get confirmation of that at a later date as we're live once again with the game here. Oxygen taking their pause since the side switch unfortunately did not magically give them the capability to close out another round, so they're still up against the wall here, 2-5, just 2 rounds needed for Parabellum to lock this one in. OXG is going to change up their site, but they're not going to go for the second floor hold just yet. Still going to keep things downstairs, just going to be over here inside of vents instead.
Interesting. Oxygen's opened up the floor here for the box side with that deployable shield towards Sandwich. This could be abusable by Parabellum. I think the big thing is that Oxygen potentially want to try and play somebody inside of vents downstairs and assist with somebody trying to move in from box. We'll just have to see, because having that pre-open just makes Parabellum's job a little bit easier later, but if they never get to that point, then it really doesn't matter, does it? So Foxay's going to play here inside of the shelves. Here at 490 doesn't actually have a reinforcement for a single panel, and that's a little scary because of the pre-fires that can
He's
actually
been revealed like 3 times.
through. And that's exactly why I was a little scared for him there in that situation, but he's going to be able to scamper off deeper into the building.
Yeah, he got droned out like 3 times over there, so he was unfortunately a dead man walking, basically, if he tried just to maintain that position for any further point into the round here. Still going to be able to keep himself alive, and that's what's important here for Oxygen, is they have been dropping a lot of players in the early rounds. They need to try and keep that count rolling to make things a bit more awkward for PB as they attempt to get towards their own late round strategies here. Things will remain pretty quiet across the map as a result of that hesitance coming in here from both Oxygen as well as Parabellum to an extent. PB actually throwing out one of their Twitch drones there to see what's going on still on the inside of Archives. We'll lose it as a result of that. Small opening going to be made over by Office side. Kool-Aid still able to strike first here for PB. He moves in, catches vertical. And we're quickly going to see Doc, along with Kool-Aid, look for a second kill as they move forward to try and clear out Fountain, but it seems like some good defensive intel coming out there from Fox. 8 pre-fires through that wall, knocks out Kool-Aid dead to rights, and locks us into another 4v4.
Oxygen making a grandstand on the top floor right now, and they'll continue it with Sweater inside of Archives. He's shut down from Asian, though. They'll maintain the 3 versus 3. Looks to take the head off of Foxay, but he's giving no opportunity just yet, forcing this timer down farther and farther. Foxay will play right outside of Mini. Such a nice angle here with the 1.5. This is the beauty of that site. You can play those pixels quite easily, especially with how tiny that dot is in the very center. But Parabellum, I don't know if they want to try and push themselves forward just yet. Dream's actually going to take down Eska, and once again, we're into a clutch situation. Asian not able to land the initial shots, but he'll tag up Newers. Foxay and Newers trying to play off of each other here inside of Armory. Blaz is going to be able to take down Dream, and now it's just the 2 top floor bodies instead, but the case is all the way down, or rather outside, on the west balcony. So, more than likely have to go for the frags here. It's going to be a trade for Asian!
Oh, he got it!
Oh my god! These two, John! Stage 3 is going to be amazing. That was disgusting.
He had 1 HP, I'm pretty sure.
Disgusting. He got grazed by a bullet by the other man. That was disgusting play from Parabellum.
Max 2 to 3 HP there. I was with the bars, but I don't know the exact amount, but it looked like it was pretty much as low as it could go there. Might get it on the replay here one more time, but what an incredible play. Here it is, looking on the right side there, just a tiny little sliver left. The absolute patience as well from Asian to wait that long to make a play. Such discipline coming in from him. It's looking like Parabellum made some good pickups right now. It's working out brilliantly in the play against Oxygen so far.
Yeah, and if I can make a recommendation, don't allow these boys to play a small map ever again. You need to ban Border. You need to ban Skyscraper. Don't let them get to the late parts. Just play something like Villa. Get them on Oregon. Like, make them have to adhere to the map. You know, like, oh man, I'm even more excited just because of how crazy this roster is and how open the dev team has made the offensive units now with how the op lineups can go with impact EMPs and secondary hard breach and all that. It's practically just taken the harness off of everything. The only thing that you're chained to is a good hard breach. That's literally it. And even that, I mean, in certain instances, you can be like, oh yeah, we got secondary hard breach. Who cares? Right? And that's a crazy thing for Rainbow Six Siege. If you would have told me that in year 5, I'd be like, nah, that's never happening. Crazy. Why would they do that? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean this game.
Okay.
They're nerfing themselves.
Not really sure how that happened, but
Eska wanted to carry the case. He was like, I will take us to victory, Kool-Aid. Don't you worry. We don't even need a hard breacher.
I think that was just some unfortunate timing for Eska's case. Probably tried to go for that pre-fire on the south door, and Kool-Aid just happened to be in the way. So, fortunate start to the round here. We'll see if Parabellum can make up for it. And it's going to cost them their ace as well. They do not actually have secondary hard breach in the lineup here, so if they required it in some form, then that's certainly going to hurt. And we've got the lockers clear, it looks like, so they definitely would have wanted it.
I mean, they won last round on a very similar clear, and Kool-Aid just so happened to be the first man that got blasted from Parabellum. So we'll see if it works out again. Blaz finds Newers as he's corrupted archives. I just realized my brain just turned on. What? Why are you? How? What? I'm okay.
Well,
I'm so lost how he got there, and no one knew Oxygen. What is happening? They're falling apart at the seams. They have no idea where any of these PB players are.
Dealt with the team kill problem. They've equalized it out. The
There we
problem
go.
is, there we go. Oxygen now
There
going
we
to go
go.
for their pickup of their own. Sweater has been activated. He takes down both Blaz as well as one additional member of the PB roster. He's going to try to get himself into a fight as well, but he's going to end up getting forced back. Makes the smart plays. They only have those 2 players remaining, wanting to try and play this out as cautiously as possible. Parabellum, unfortunately, might be biting off a bit more than they can chew inside of this situation. Of course, with the team kill, limiting their chances to begin with, but still, Doc manages to make that first peek work. Just went for the horizontal spray and managed to catch at least one member of OXG there. Asian now the last one alive inside of a 1v3 here. No case control either. I don't think anyone picked up the case after Kool-Aid got dropped, by the way. It's still been sitting outside this entire time. So Asian's going to try and play this out. Just missed an opportunity to try and challenge the Azami. She's all barricaded up now. It's going to be pretty hard for him to justify a play past this. We've gone Fortnite mode as well, as he's going to build out fully from there to give him access to the inside of the lockers. And Asian going to have to try to take another route now as a result of that. It's pretty much do or die for him here on this peak, and unfortunately die will be the way it goes. Vertical shuts it down, and finally we've got another round from OXG up on the board.
See, Ubisoft, this is why we need no build. This is ridiculous, I tell you. But no, I mean, Azami just showing why she is such a proactive character. You can do anything that you are willing to think about with that character. A very creative kid. So, but Oxygen finally able to get around when it seemed like Parabellum was going to close this out 7-2 until they kneecapped themselves. But I'm sure that they're more than likely just going to laugh that off and go right back to what was happening, because that is just one of those rounds that in any kind of a situation, especially when you're in the lead by such a large margin, it's like, oh, that was kind of funny. Okay, I guess we'll just move on and do things, because there's no point in getting all antsy about it or getting angry. Like, all of that's just going to ruin the vibe of what's happening right now.
It's like, hey, like, we started from a 4v5 and we still brought it down to a 1v3. Like, not bad at the end of the day.
So let's reset, and then let's win this round. We'll go get lunch. I'm thinking like Master Kim's. You thinking Master Kim's?
Yeah, they got that right down the street too.
Yeah,
so.
that's what I'm saying, dude. I hit the Uber. I'll go to Master Kim's right after this if I'm PB.
All right, well, let's see if PB can get it done here. Obviously, it's going to be a massive upset if they can pull this through. Oxygen definitely going to need to go back to the drawing board a little bit as far as border is concerned. Maybe figure things out with the rolls a little bit as well before we get into the next match day here. It is only day 1, of course, so there's plenty of time for Oxygen to rebound and for Parabellum to excel even further, of course. But we'll wait and see how the rest of this game goes to truly lock in the first day's storyline for both of these teams.
Well, allegedly, Sweater is supposed to be more the flex pick, right? While Newers and Vertical slot in more of a fragging role. Obviously, this gets thrown around with anything, right? With operators and all that kind of stuff. You can still play your style and play something that has utility, right? So the big thing that we're pointing out here is that Sweater, he's having a heck of a ball right now. Vertical, though, he's been stunted. And this is something that we kind of noticed during Stage 2, is that he is either completely on and taking out the entire enemy team, or Vertical isn't able to do too much. It seems like he just becomes fodder more than anything for either Oxygen to get some space or, just try and push themselves forward in the round in a meaningful way. So we could see him light a fire, though, and really start taking it to PB. That'd really be in the good graces of them, but Sweater's going to go down. Some nice shots, though, will take up Vertical. They know he's still inside of Archives. Oh, the drone work! Vertical! Blaz will go down. He pre-fires Metal as well,
no.
and Foxay will take him out. Oh my gosh, these kids nowadays. Let me tell you, John, Siege is a completely different game with the amount of pre-fires we're having through walls. They'll be able to claim 2 bodies for the price of just a Blaz.
Foxy finally abusing back the aggression from Blaz a bit, though, catching him in the fact that he was going to be opening up the wall to say, like, hey, I could probably get a free headshot off of this. And indeed, he does. So he's able to trade that back, stops the chaos, at least for a moment or two here, brings it down to a 3v4, which is now going to be very winnable for Oxygen with that play from Foxy. He claims the second one, yours, gets the third as Eska falls, and suddenly PB not looking so hot on this run. They've lost the case again as well. Another push from Newers knocks out Doc, leaving only the new pickup Asian in play for a 1v3. Mind you, again, no case control, so we'll have to try and find a way to wrangle that if he doesn't go for all 3 kills. Still on the second floor as well, using a smoke to block things out here on the main landing. It's not a perfect smoke, though. He's just going to use it to separate the fight, and it works. Knocks out Newers, deals with him. There is a clean path, I believe, for Foxy to move through without getting his vision obscured, but he doesn't want to risk it. Dream still has the back end of this hold, and he's going to be able to successfully keep it together as OXG do manage to secure their 4th.
A little sketchy, but the OG Foxy shows his face. He gets aggressive on the base floor of border. I've never seen this before, but this time it wasn't with Pulse. Big shocker there, right? As he just flies outside, gets all of these frags, and continues to try and take the aggression to PB that allows the rest of his team to try and step up to the plate too, especially there for Newers with the team swing towards Metal. Oxygen, they're starting to get back into good graces, but I fear it's too little too late.
Foxy saw that that attempt to take him down through the wall. I was like, all right, we're in the jungle gym now. Yeah. We're gonna go for these types of plays. So.
He just remembered who he was. He was like, wait,
he's like,
I'm
wait,
Davide Bucci.
I can do that. I can do that too.
Yeah, I'm Foxy. I do this. Hold on. Hold on.
So we've definitely got a bit of an element to match the play coming in from the European pickup on Parabellum. Blaz coming in here with some very exciting stuff throughout this game, including that very nice ace we got out of him earlier on in the first half. But finally someone else to match his prowess here. Will it be enough to bring OXG all the way back? That's another big question.
I think we've downshifted and we're ready for launch here with Oxygen, because we've got Sweater back over on the Pulse for all that info, but a little birdie at the very bottom of this list, John, has switched himself over to Oryx. And Foxy, I think, is going to go for a little bit of a flight inside of this round, whether it be through hatches outside or what have you, we'll have to see, but I can almost guarantee you Foxy is going to be quite aggressive with this pick.
We're going to see an abandonment of the security hold pretty quickly here, too. We're going to get another downstairs play. It'll be inside of Tellers, too, so CCTV not going to be a required hold by the defense here by any means. Much more so will the focus be on the area we're looking at now, Office as well as Fountain. That could be much more quintessential to Parabellum's success if they are able to take it, but even then, it's not a requirement considering it's Tellers here. Big play coming in from Newers as he tries to hold the active defense against the clear from Blaz. Doesn't work out this time, though. Blaz wins the initial frag again for PB.
Crucial shots constantly being missed by Oxygen here. And Blaz able to capitalize on it time and time again. 13-6, and I believe that he's got like 5+ entries as well. And that's not even to talk about the rest of Parabellum that we've seen be so dominant inside of these mechanical showcases, especially Asian with the F2 showing just how solid he is with that rifle. Vertical, I don't know how long he's got left to live. Luckily that frag grenade won't bounce his way. It will take out the mute jammer and make it to where Fountain is a lot more difficult to try and stick by. He'll have to drop back down into stall, but he's immediately taken down by Asian, who's already made the rotation for the window.
Cutoffs once again for PB. Huge respect to how well they've been able to put things together, given how new these two pickups have to be to the roster, but they are absolutely excelling on the squad right now. Both Doc as well as Asian having a positive KD on top of their overall contribution to the team and other factors as well. Really, really great first showing, regardless of how the rest of this match goes. And it's looking promising regardless, as things have been brought down to a 5v2 now. Dream and Foxy looking for a way to hold out this defense, still with over a minute on the clock as well. There we go, a third kill in the round now claimed by Asian, bringing it all on to Foxy. He was clutch in the last round, but a 1v5 as the plant is going down might be asking for just a little bit too much, and indeed it will. It'll be a flawless round from PB to shut it all out here as they take a huge surprise to start the stage off here. Absolute victory versus Oxygen.
Never been happier to be wrong, seeing a success story like that. Parabellum taking it to Oxygen in every sense of the term. Fantastic play from them, and I believe they've surprised quite a few of us, honestly. I mean, even a lot of the CL talent that I was talking to and seeing some of what they were putting online and that kind of stuff was like, I don't think that Parabellum's really got a leader. I don't know how this team's going to mesh, and the answer is quite well.
Indeed, they do. The new pickups, definitely a risk to be sure with the untested nature in T1 play, but at least for today, it's worked out brilliantly for PB as they excel in huge strides, whether it's with regards to their timing, their intel play, their just overall capability to win 1v1s. It didn't seem like they were missing any part of the picture here in their matchup versus Oxygen. That's got to shift the question to just what the heck happened with Oxygen here today.
I mean, The obvious one is that they're missing Laxing, right? I mean, it's exactly what we were talking about. He's a core component of that team, or was, obviously, with the main 3 pillars that they had in the likes of Vertical, Foxe, and Laxing. When you remove one of those pillars, you have to build that back up. You're not going to be at the exact same level, because here's the thing, those 3 have been playing together so long that it's just subconscious, some of the things that they do, right? Like, it's something that you wouldn't necessarily know off rip, like, oh, hey, Lax is usually the person that does this. He could have just went off and did it just in general, and you would have just never have known. So it's always those little things you never really can predict. So I think Oxygen's going to continue to go through these growing pains, but overall, I think the roster looks decent. I think it looks serviceable. They just have to get on the same page, like what Parabellum was doing. Their play was fantastic, meshed extremely well, just cohesive overall, and very enjoyable to watch.
And meanwhile, for Parabellum, of course, they're going to be getting nice and hyped for themselves. They've got another matchup tomorrow versus X-Sets. They will need to be ripe and ready for that one, as they'll have just as much aggression, just as much power being thrown back at them by their opponents. That'll do it for the 2 of us for right now, I believe, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to a quick break, and then when we do come back, we'll have your analysts to break things down.
Just another sunny day in Southern California. It's where the people came to play. Don't let them transform you. Oh. Come and see what you've been missing on a little slice of heaven. It's the only place we're living. It's that West Coast point of view. Easy when it's always summertime fun. You and I get free attitude. Who cares what the people think? It's been turning kinda gray in Southern California, but I'm allergic to the rain. What happened to euphoria? Don't worry about it, damn thing. I'm too excited. Dark liquor with the palm trees. It's all or nothing, ooh, it's all or nothing. Ignore the signs and socialize. Come and see what you've been missing on a little slice of heaven. It's the only place we're living. It's that West Coast point.
Welcome back to Upset City, aka the Rainbow Six North American League. Parabellum taking down Oxygen in the very first match of the stage. You know, I gotta say, the new additions look good.
Yeah, they're looking really, really good. I mean, Sweater told me he was trying to gatekeep Asian out of the league. Maybe he should have tried a little bit harder. Yeah, Asian comes in and he's making Sweater sweat a little bit in this game.
Sweater sweat?
Yeah, it's a different
we really
version
have
of.
to get that alliteration in there.
People thought it meant the clothing item. It turns out it just means someone who sweats. I guess.
He is in fact
sweater now.
Perspiration down his face. Yeah, after a game like that, where it feels like to fit into a role that Laxing left behind, those are some really big shoes to fill, and that game was proof of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have an interview for you in just a moment, but let's break down that game just a little bit before we get into it, because they're still getting that set up over in Vegas. I mean, PB looking really good across the board. Obviously, the questions about nerves for Asian, obviously, did not end up being well-founded. He seemed pretty solid through the whole thing.
Yeah, especially later in that game, I thought when they moved over onto the attacking side of it, I thought Asian really did step up and perform. He had that big 2K in the 2v2 clutch, right, back in, round number 8. So it was nice to see that from him. He was also, like, really finding those impacts, finding those entries, right? I think every single attacking round that they won, Asian was probably the most important player. He was getting some of the most impactful kills. Not even though he was just getting a ton of them, but he was getting them where they really mattered. So I love to see that from Asian. You know, you talk about players that might be put off balance by Finka not being in the meta. Not that Asian really played Finka beforehand, but clearly not a problem for him.
No, same thing goes for Doc. I feel like there's a level of maturity that goes into reading the entry, especially when you're playing on defense. And he's always got an idea. There could be several different places that any number of opponents could be hiding in this room, and he doesn't necessarily check all of them. He just has a sixth sense about exactly where he needs to go with it. Felt like his preciseness was a really big reason why Parabellum could get this off in the first place. And not that I'm pointing out anything in particular, but I love how Asian's most played operators on defense just happen to be Azami and Legion. He's holding true to his namesake, it seems like.
There you go, yep. The thing is, too, is that, like, for a team like Parabellum, they needed a map like that. You need a confidence-boosting map, I think, early in a stage like this with those new players. I think that's vital, especially for a player like Asian, which, again, like when I talked to this guy last week, he seemed very nervous. He seemed like it was a little bit tricky for him to adjust to living away from home. You know, he liked being in the team house, but it's a big change, you know? So I think a win like this, the clutch plays that he himself had in it is going to be really, really useful for Parabellum's continuing success, theoretically, in Stage 3.
Yeah, and it's against Oxygen, too, which are a good team, right? This isn't like some bottom-tier NAL team that you're, like, going to get a free win off the start. No, it's a tough first week here for Parabellum. So being able to take the win off of OXG, I think, was a huge win for them today, not only mentally, but also for the points in the standings when we get later towards the end of the stage.
Yep, that's right. Well, over in Vegas now, standing by, or sitting by, I suppose, we have none other than Blaz from Team Parabellum. Blaz, congratulations on the win. It's got to feel good getting the win in the first game of the season. How do you feel like the two new players were working out?
I think like we play pretty good, but just the problem we don't have a lot of time for work before the stage. But I think we are ready for this stage, and we will see.
Blaz, you had so much impact in this game, and it particularly seemed like it started to step up right after that tactical timeout.
Oh.
After Sonar calls that, they take a minute to make that time, and then you make the play where you sprint downstairs, you make that aggressive swing to get the 2K opener back in round number 4. What was it that Sonar said to you, or what did your team discuss in that tac timeout that made you start playing so much more aggressive and start taking those chances?
Yeah, we have talked. We say, okay, let's try to play maybe more aggro because we just let take below and take the vert below. So not just say, yeah, if you want to try play, do it. So I take my opportunity, I do it, and it was working for this round. So yeah.
You've had to go through a really big change in roster from last stage into this one, and when you came in last stage, I know that you had some nerves about how everything was going to actually end up working, but has it been a good transition for you so far, coming from Europe now to North America? We haven't been able to talk to you face to face yet, so I was curious how you've been liking the transition into North American Siege.
I really like play here because for me the league is so much professional. Like to play on the stage and to live with your team is very good. I very like that. I think it's better to play like in Europe. You play in your house alone with your team, without your team. Sorry. So yeah, I really prefer to play here.
Makes sense. Well, one more question before we let you go. You were the new player before. Now the new players are Doc and Asian. Did you have any advice for them coming into game number 1?
No, nothing special. Just relax and take fun when you play. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean that is good advice. That qualifies. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. Congrats on the win, and looking forward to seeing you play next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right. Well, that's Blaz from Team Parabellum. You know, he's a quiet person in a way, but he is loud on the map. He put down some pretty amazing stats today.
Yeah, definitely the MVP in my mind for this map. I mean, especially how we started things off for Parabellum, right? I said that Asian had a lot of impact on attack. On defense, Blaz was really that guy that I asked him about. You know, he's making these aggressive swings. He, of course, had that 1v4 clutch down on the bathroom bomb site. Really did a great job of being able to open things up there on the defense, being able to make those moves, whether it's late, whether it's early, open things and take the initiative for Parabellum that really did start to catch Oxygen off guard.
So we've been hyping up Parabellum for most of the day, and rightly so, but I think we need to talk about Vertical for 1 second. I feel like not only was it a bit of a weird thing to come in from a stage 2 in a Berlin major that we're kind of lacking, when we're talking about your role that is so firepower focused and to see you go 3-9, that's a really big problem. I think through 7 rounds, Homie was like 1-6 and wasn't able to pull much back through the rest of the map. It feels like on defense, his roams were shut down very quickly, and when he tried entering the building as some of that frontline help alongside Newers on attack, it felt like his entry was the one that was being read very consistently by those Parabellum roamers. And part of that is definitely because I don't know if Sweater is necessarily filling into that role Laxing was occupying before nearly as well, which definitely is mostly detrimental to Vertical's performance. But if that keeps happening, there's going to be a problem on OXG.
I think you definitely have a problem when your stage 1 and stage 2 MVPs are the 2 bottom performing players in your team the first day of stage 3. You got a lot of work to do, obviously, with that. Yeah, and I mean, sure, you're happy that Sweater, your new guy, you know, for your team, put up some good numbers, but like, you need to get the win. And Oxygen looking a little bit lifeless in that first one.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with Sweater, right? Like, sure, he got some good kills. You know, he was playing like Lion, and he was playing some of those Nomad, those flank watchy, roam clearing operators that you like to see. He was really filling in Laxing's role. I was expecting maybe we'd see Fox try to take that. Maybe we'd see the Sweater on the sledge. But no, Sweater was really playing that kind of roam hunty, you know, flank watch type operator. And the number of flanks, the number of aggressive plays that Blaz was able to get away with, you just got to wonder, would Laxing have let that happen? And although Sweater got a lot of great kills, I think he had, you know, some good impact, especially early in the round, using those Lion charges to get those picks on the roam clear. It felt like sometimes he wasn't doing his job in terms of stopping those aggressive plays from happening against his team.
I'd say part of it might be the fact that when he's playing Lion, all you have to do is push a button and instant impact, to quote the old Kickstart clip. But when he's playing Nomad, when there's a little bit more that you have to worry about, not only in where the air jabs go, but also where you're looking at particular moments, I think a little bit of that Sweater instinct of being a kill hunter is something that needs to get reined back in, because that's not your job when you're playing on those roles, and you need to be able to fit in with that mesh a little bit more. So I do think maybe OXG might miss some of that Laxing presence. I do think you can get used to a role like that, but for Sweater, it may take a little bit of time if he's playing like this.
I mean, Sweater told me he wanted to show a little bit more versatility with what he's doing this stage, and he did, no doubt, but they got to bring it together in some more team coordinations, more wins. Let's take a look at a couple wins in some particular rounds for Parabellum, though. There's some pretty amazing stuff going on. The first one, of course, we got to take round 5. We got to look at what Blaz did. He had that 1v4 clutch, and it was impressive stuff. This guy is good at clicking heads.
Blaz is crazy. He's down to the 1v4 here, and then, you know, they kind of don't know where he is. These first 2 kills, okay, awesome. Blaz, he's made that impact. He trades his teammates. I gotta criticize this next play in from Fox, though, dropping in. I think he assumed Blaz had rotated away or something. Terrible drop from Fox, and then finishes off Sweater in the 1v1. Blaz, the mechanical skill to be able to hit those. Really impressive stuff from him. Unfortunate the time was so pressuring Oxygen that they made a lot of mistakes there in that 4v1.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we got another round to look at. It's going to be round 8, and this is a big win for one of the new guys, Asian, stepping up in a situation where it looked like he was dead. He had like no life bar remaining. There was like a tiny, tiny little sliver, able to get the kill, able to get the round for his team. And again, for a player like that, big, big confidence booster. Let's check it out.
See, here's the thing. This is just a really good patience moment overall from Asian, because he's not supposed to stay alive for this long, yet he manages to persist through a round where OXG are just trying to desperately hold the top floor and makes the instantaneous push to office when he realizes it's there. Oxygen had a couple of rounds where it was very good through the early and the mid game, to a point where they were getting in position for an execute when they were attacking. And then you swap sides, it's just about wasting time. And then you get down to 1v1 scenarios. I think Parabellum had 3 of them in this game where they were able to win in the dying seconds of a round where it's a 1vx situation, one player on Parabellum clutches up. OXG did basically everything right, leading to that point. There's a lot of good things to be said until like the last 20 seconds of a round where Parabellum have one player creating all the impact and actually forcing the win in their direction. If all 3 of those 1vx's go OXG's way, we probably look at minimum an overtime game.
Yeah, I mean, OXG with a little bit of work to do. Final thoughts, Jesse, on this one. What do you think OXG needs to do going to the next one?
I mean, I think we've got to see Vertical stepping up a little bit better as a second entry, right? A lot of times a player would die right in front of Vertical and he would struggle to get that trade, especially on the defense. You know, Sweater or Newers would die in front of him and he'd go for the swing and he'd just die himself, or he wouldn't be there in position to get that trade in. So I want to see Vert a little bit more in, working with the rest of his teammates to be able to get those trades. And I want to see Sweater kind of adapting to his role a little bit more, right? He's a gunner. We know he can do that, but maybe going forward the next couple of weeks, they can move some things around or get him more in position to stop some of those flanks.
We'll find out. It's only day one of the stage, but then again, there aren't a ton of play days overall, so every map does matter, absolutely. Well, we're just getting started here today with Rainbow Six NAL. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, it's going to be Dark Zero taking on Astralis, another rematch of the Charlotte Major Finals. Should be a great series. That's starting right after this.